Dear students, good morning. Today we will be discussing about the development of urogenital system part 1. Today our topic of discussion will be development of the kidney, ureters, urinary bladder. Our discussion will start with a clinical case. Maria, a 20-year-old university student, approached the medical OPD of SMHS Hospital, Srinagar, with history of recurrent pelvic discomfort. The resident on duty after proper physical examination advised an ultrasound, routine urine and blood examination. The findings were is pulse and blood pressure within normal range, no significant finding on physical examination, blood and urine examination within normal limits. Ultrasound showed pelvic right kidney with normal size and the corticomedullary differentiation was visible and no hydronephrosis. The resident explained the patient about her case and referred her to the urologist. The urologist advised for an intravenous pyelography, which was normal. He also explained the case and reassured the patient after giving some advice. So this was the intravenous pyelography of the same case. And here we can see intravenous pyelography. Basically, it is a contrast given intravenously, which is excreted by the kidneys. So it normal when the uroexcretory system is functioning normally, it will show the various parts of the kidneys and the ureters as well as the urinary bladder. So here, if we follow from below, we will see the urinary bladder. The dye is present in the urinary bladder, and on the left side we can see the ureter extending upwards, and we have the pelvic-ureteric junction. Then we have the pelvis. Then we can see the calyces, the major and the minor calyces, and this is the normal location of the left kidney. But on the right side we cannot see the right kidney. But if we closely follow it, we can see the right kidney, that we can see the right ureter. It is short and it ending in the pelvic area. By dividing here we can see the calyces. So we can say that this is a case of pelvic kidney. This pelvic kidney is a congenital anomaly because this kidney develops in the pelvic, the sacral region, then it ascends to its normal location, and this case result is a result of failure when the kidney fails to ascend up into the abdominal region. So let us discuss about the development of kidney and ureters. So learning objectives, what we need to know: an overview of structure of urinary system, from which embryonic tissue the genitourinary system develops. We have to discuss about the stages of development of kidney and ureters, mesonephric duct, what happens to the mesonephric duct in males and females, developmental anomalies of kidney and ureters. First of all, we must have an overview of structure of the urinary system, because this will later on guide to understand this will guide us to understand the development of the kidney and the rest of the urinary system. Here in this diagram we can see the urinary system. Here we have the kidneys, the right and left kidneys, the ureters crossing the common iliac vessels, draining into the bladder, and we have the urethra over here. If we take a longitudinal section of this kidney, we can see the interior of the kidney. It is divided in outer palar area, which is known as the corticus, and the inner part, which is some pinkish, having pyramidal structures, which are the renal pyramids. They form the renal medulla, and in between these pyramids pass some projectors, some part of the corticus, which are known as the renal columns. The renal pyramids have apexes which project into the minor calyces. Then we can see the hilum of the kidney here enter the renal vessels and the pelvis of the kidney. If we take a magnified view of the pyramid, we can see it appearing like this. in the cortex area, we can see the nephron, it is tubules and the glomeruli. Then they join together and form the collecting tubules, which then drain into collecting ductus. Then these collecting ductus, they pass through the apicus and drain the urine into the minor calyces. Now let us discuss about the embryonic tissue from which the genitourinary system develops. This is basically the intermediate mesoderm which gives rise to genitourinary system, except the urinary bladder, the urethra and the lower part of the vagina. These develop from the urogenital signs. So let us take a rough diagram of the trilaminar embryonic disc. The red one is the ectoderm, the green is the mesoderm, and the yellow is the endoderm. Above which we have the amniotic cavity and below we have the yolk sac. Now we take a longitudinal section, transverse section rather. So what we can see, the embryonic disc appearing like this. In the center, in the midline, we have the neural tube and the notochord, and on either side we have the mesoderm, intraembryonic mesoderm. So intraembryonic mesoderm does not extend into the midline of the embryonic disc. Rather, it is divided on either side into three parts. From medial to lateral side, these are the paraxial mesoderm, the intermediate mesoderm, and the lateral palate mesoderm. This is basically the intermediate mesoderm from which the genitourinary system develops. Now, if we later on, after further development, and if we see at the lateral view of the embryo, we can see that the intermediate mesoderm extending from the cervical region into the sacral region, and here the yellow area, it is basically the cloaca, which is continuous anteriorly with the allantois, and posteriorly it becomes continuous with the hind gut. Kidney and the ureter will develop in some stages. So there are three stages happening temporal, in a temporal sequence, craniocaudally. These are the pronephros, the mesonephros, and the metanephros. The pronephros appears in the cervical region of the intermediate mesoderm. It is vestigial and it soon disappears. It is a functional kidney in excretory system in the lower animals like the fish. Then we have the mesonephros in the lower thoracic and the lumbar regions, and in the sacral region we have the metanephros from which the definitive kidney develops. And here what we can see, the transverse section on either side of the, this is the gut, and on either we have the mesentery over here. On either side of the mesentery, posterior wall of the coelom, we have the developing mesonephros, which raises a bulge over in the coelomic cavity. This is known, this forms the nephrogenic cord. Medial to this nephrogenic cord, we have another bulge by the proliferation of the overlying mesenchyme, which forms the gonadal ridge, and collectively the urinary ridge or the nephrogenic cord and the gonadal ridge they form collectively the genitourinary ridge from which the genitourinary system develops. Pronephros, seen in the cervical and upper thoracic regions, it forms 7 to 10 excretory units called nephritomeres, which disappear immediately. Vestigial, and it soon disappears. So this is the pronephros over here. We can see the different parts of this intermediate mesoderm, the pronephros, the mesonephros, and the metanephros. The pronephros disappears earlier. The mesonephros then later becomes functional. It only removes the waste products, but it does not do a selective reabsorption. Then later the definitive kidney develops, which does both the excretory function as well as the selective reabsorption because of the presence of the tubules, developing tubules, and the peritubular capillary network, peritubular plexus rather. So from our discussion so far, what we have discussed it, we can come to know that the intermediate mesoderm is divided into three systems. From above downwards, we have the pronephros, which appears early because it does not compensate for removing the metabolic waste products in the human beings and other higher animals. Then we have the mesonephros, which does have an excrete system, excretory tubules. It does remove the waste products, metabolic waste products, but it cannot do a selective function of selective reabsorption because of the absence of the peritubular plexus. And while is the definitive kidney, which develops in the from the metanephros, and it has both functions, that of the removal of the waste products as well as the selective reabsorption. So let us see now the mesonephros. Parts of the mesonephros. It has a duct which is known as the mesonephric duct, which extends up from the cervical region down into the enters into the cloaca. It gives rise to epididymis, vas deferens, and ejaculated ductus in the males. In females, it becomes rudimentary and forms the Garter's duct. Mesonephric tubules represent the excretory tubules. Efferent ductile subtestes arise from these, and in females they become rudimentary and form the iphoron and paraoophoron. Now, in these two diagrams, what we see, the first one, the crania, the most one, that is the pronephros, which is degenerating. Then one is the pronephros degenerates, it is duct also degenerates, that pronephric duct. Then this duct continues down as the mesonephric duct. So this is the mesonephros, and here we have the mesonephric duct. This mesonephric duct enters down into the anterior part of the cloaca, which later on forms the urogenital sinus. So this is the cloaca. From the lower part of the mesonephric duct arises the ureteric bud, and here transversely running we have the mesonephric tubules, which form the excretory units of the mesonephros. They pass into the mesonephric duct laterally, but medially they form cup-shaped, become cup-shaped, and they have a capillary network, that is the glomerulus over here. Later on they again disappear, and they are represented by different ductules of the testes. So metanephros, this forms the definitive kidney. It arises from intermediate mesoderm in the sacral region. Ureteric bud arises from the distal mesonephric duct. Ureteric bud grows toward the metanephros, which is now called as metanephric blastema. The excretory part develops from the metanephric blastema. The ureteric bud gives rise to ureters, renal pelvis, calyces, and the collecting ductus. The ureteric bud and the metanephric blastema have inductive influence on each other. That means the ureteric bud induces the differentiation of the metanephric blastema into different excretory units, while the metanephric blastema, on the other hand, has an inductive influence on the ureteric bud to cause its divisions and redivisions, forming the different connecting units. And this happens because of the expression of certain factors by both this ureteric bud and the metanephric blastema, and these factors are WT1 factor, glial derived neurotropic factor, hepatocyte growth factor, or which is also known as the secretor. Here we can see the different stages of the development of the kidney. First of all, we have the pronephros, which is in the cervical region. Then we have the mesonephros. The pronephros and the mesonephros, they are segmented. The pronephros disappears. Then the lowermost portion in the sacral region is the metanephros, which is not segmented. Now this metanephros grows the what is known as the ureteric bud. So here we can see the metanephros. Now, once the ureteric bud goes toward the metanephros, it forms what is known as metanephric blastema. So, metanephric blastema is the part develops from the metanephros, which itself is develops from the lower part of the intermediate mesoderm in the sacral region. Here we have the cloaca. Now in the cloaca, anteriorly enters the allantois and posteriorly it becomes continuous with the hind gut. Later on, cloaca divides into the urogenital sinus and in the anorectal canal. Now this metanephros, once the ureteric bud goes into the metanephros, it forms a cape-like structure over here. This is known as now the metanephric blastema. Next stage, the ureteric bud, once it interacts with the metanephros, it divides and forms a bifid-like structure. Later on, it divides and redivides, forming first of all the major calyces. After that, about 12 generations of divisions happen in the this ureteric major calyces. Beyond major calyces, about 12 generation of divisions occur. The first 4 divisions, they join together to form the minor calyces. Then the later divisions, they join together to form the collecting ductus. So the collecting ductus, the minor calyces, major calyces, ureter, they all develop from the ureteric bud. Later on, the one of the bud, this collecting duct, it interacts with a cluster of cells of the metanephros. So that cluster of cells later on become occurs a lumen and forming a vesicular structure which is known as the renal vesicle. Now later on, this renal vesicle forms an S-shaped structure. Now S-shaped structure, it has a medial end which is towards the branch of the aorta, dorsal aorta, and a lateral end which becomes interacts with the collecting duct. Later on, it elongates and becomes somewhat convoluted and occurs a cup-shaped structure at its lateral end. And into this cup-shaped structure go into medial end, and grow the tuft of the capillaries from the dorsal aorta, branch of the dorsal aorta, which forms the glomerulus. And on the lateral end, there occurs a luminal continuity now between the collecting excretory these tubules and the collecting tubules, which is the critical point in the development of the kidney. So if this luminal continuity, there occurs failure of this luminal continuity, which will later on give rise to a disease which is known as congenital polycystic kidney disease. Development of urinary bladder and ureters. Urinary bladder develops from epithelium. Most of it develops from the endoderm of the urogenital sinus, except part of the trigone, that part which is known as the trigone, which develops from the mesoderm. Musculature develops from the sphygmopyloric mesoderm in the urogenital sinus. Ureterine males have 4 parts. One is called the prostatic part, another is the membranous part, another is the penile part, and another is the distal part. All these parts, the prostatic part, the portion of the prostatic part above the opening of the ejaculatory ductus, develop from the mesoderm, while is rest, the membranous part and the penile part and the lower part of the prostatic urethra, they all develop from the urogenital sinus. And the distal part develops from the what is known as the ectodermal tissue. In case of the females, all this urethra develops from the urogenital sinus. So in females, whole of the urethra develops from urogenital sinus. So let us see the development of the urethra further. The urinary bladder. In first stage, early embryonic period, we have, say, first of all, we have the bilaminar germ disc. Above with the amniotic cavity, below we have the yolk sac. Then about during the 16th day, a diverticulum from the this yolk sac arises and passes towards the connecting stalk, which is now known as the allantois. Later on, folding of the embryo occurs after the formation of the germ, trilaminar germ disc. So the yolk sac gets incorporated into the endodermal tube. The caudal portion of the endodermal tube forms the hindgut. So the allantois becomes part of the or enters arises, we can say, from the hindgut, and then distal part passes toward the connecting stalk, so that there is a connected continuity between the connecting stalk and the hindgut. Now later on we can see the hindgut portion is dilated, forming the cloaca. So into this cloaca, anteriorly we have the allantois, and posteriorly we have the hindgut. Later on this cloaca divides into the urogenital sinus anteriorly and posteriorly the anorectal canal by the development of the urorectal septum. And here we have the allantois anteriorly entering. Once the septum is complete, the septum divides the cloaca anteriorly the urogenital sinus and posteriorly the anorectal canal, and the septum urorectal septum itself forms the perineal body. Here we have the urogenital sinus. This is the urogenital sinus. So if we can follow this urogenital sinus, anteriorly it becomes continuous with the umbilical cord through these allantois, which later on forms the urachus, and after birth it gets obliterated to form the median umbilical ligament. Here we can see the bladder, it has developed almost fully, and apex of the bladder becomes continuous with the umbilical cord, we can see, by means of the urachus. So this is the urachus. Then this urachus gets obliterated, forming the median umbilical ligament. So continuity between the urinary bladder and the umbilical cord is now lost. So in the anterior abdominal wall, when we see it from its posterior aspect, we can see that the urachus, obliterated urachus, appearing like this, forming the median umbilical ligament. And if we see, it arises from the apex of the bladder. There we have in the anterior abdominal wall, from the posterior aspect, seen three folds. One is the lateral umbilical fold, which contains the inferior epigastric vessels. Then we have the medial umbilical fold, which contains the umbilical vessels, arteries, and the median umbilical fold, which contains the obliterated urachus. Let us see the development of the further development of the urinary bladder. Now urinary bladder develops from the anterior part of the cloaca, which now forms urogenital sinus after the formation of the urorectal septum. Now into this part of the urogenital sinus enter the mesonephric ductus. From the mesonephric ductus arise diverticulum, which is now known as urethral bud. Now this urethral bud goes towards the metanephric blastema or the metanephros. Later on, further development occurs. The lower parts of the mesonephric ductus, they get incorporated into the bladder, so that the ureters, they have now opened separately into the urinary bladder. Then further absorption of the mesonephric ductus occurs. So the openings of the ureters, they move upwards, while the openings of the these ductus, they move downwards. So a triangular area then appears on the posterior wall of the bladder. This triangular area is now known as the trigone. So this trigone is basically arises from the absorption of the mesonephric ductus or incorporation of the mesonephric ductus. So we can say that whole of the bladder develops from most of the bladder develops from the urogenital sinus, except the epithelium of the trigone, which develops from the intermediate mesoderm, and that gives rise to the mesonephric ductus, because this trigone develops as a result of the incorporation of the mesonephric ductus in the posterior wall of the bladder. So let us see the congenital anomalies of the urinary organs. First of all, we have the abnormal location of the kidneys, which is known as ectopic kidney. Sometimes these both kidneys can be on one side. They are known as unilateral kidneys. Now here we can see that the abnormal location of the kidney Here we can have a pelvic kidney, sometimes we can have an iliac kidney. Now pelvic kidney occurs when the kidney fails to ascend up into the abdominal the lumbar region, and sometimes it can get arrested at the iliac region, so that time it is called as iliac kidney. Once the kidney is in the pelvis, it gets its blood supply from the sacral vessels. In the iliac region, it gets its blood supply, the common iliac vessels, and in the lumbar region from the anterior abdominal aorta by means of the renal vessels. In this picture, if we see, the lower poles of the two kidneys are fused, so forming a horseshoe-like structure. So such a kidney is known as horseshoe kidney. In case of the horseshoe kidney, the two ureters, they cross the lower poles and then they drain normally into the urinary bladder. Then another anomaly we can see over here, whole of the both of the kidneys, they are fused together to form a single mass. This single mass resembles a pancake. So such type of a kidney is known as pancake kidney. So we can see that this is the pancake. So such a type of a kidney resembles a pancake. So that is why it is called as a pancake kidney. Renal agenesis. When the kidney fail to develop, sometimes there can be unilateral renal agenesis, and whenever there is unilateral agenesis, this cannot be cause any problem until and unless the other kidney is functioning normally. Sometimes both kidneys can fail to develop. That is known as bilateral renal agenesis, and this bilateral renal agenesis is associated with a syndrome which is known as Porter syndrome, and it is characterized by clubfoot, classic facies having nasal, ocular, jaw and ear and jaw deformities, and pulmonary hypoplasia. This happens because of the oligohydramnios. Now this urine, fetal urine, adds to the amniotic fluid. So when these kidneys fail to develop, the amniotic fluid is very small in quantity. There occurs compression of the fetal pods, and that gives rise to this Porter syndrome. So this is a child having Porter syndrome. We can see the feet, they are inverted, they are known as club feet, and here we can also see the facial deformities. Here this is a picture of the club foot. This club foot can be a part of this Porter syndrome, or it can be some isolated, occur as an isolated entity. Sometimes the collecting and the excretive ducts, they fail to communicate. So that leads to a condition that is known as congenital polycystic kidney. There can be malrotation of the kidney, that the hilum faces anteriorly rather than medially. There can be double ureter. Here we can see a normal kidney. The next one is a kidney surface is studded with some cystis. They are known as the renal cystis. So this is the congenital polycystic kidney. Here we can see we have a double ureter, and the IVP or the intravenous pyelogrammy can show the double ureter. We can see here the double ureter draining into the urinary bladder. So other congenital anomalies can be, one is the patent urachus. Now here we can see this patent urachus. When the allantois fails to obliterate, this is known as the patent urachus, and in this condition the urine can trickle. And if we can see in a newborn, we have a patent urachus. There will occur the trickling of the urine from the umbilicus, that is known as weeping umbilicus. Sometimes the infraumbilical portion of the anterior abdominal wall fails to develop, so the bladder remains outside. This is known as ectopia vesica or exostrophy of the bladder. Sometimes the urorectal septum, which divided the cloaca into the urogenital sinus and into the anorectal canal, fails to develop properly, and there occurs a communication between the rectum and the urinary bladder, that is known as rectovesical fistula. And sometimes in case of the females, there can be occur a communication between the rectum and the lower part of the vagina, which both of which develop from the cloaca, urogenital sinus part of the cloaca, and that is known as the rectovaginal fistula. So thank you. So next time we will discuss about the development of the gonads, inshallah.